Никишин здорово там.
Решил сам прорываться. Хоккей на встречных курсах. Сила.
Закрыл Никишин зону. Бросок, гол, девятку. Какой бросок невероятный. В интервью, да?
Ой, Андрей, музыка звучит. Попрошу коллег чуть-чуть посмотреть.
The Hurricanes have a lot of young, exciting prospects, but none of them are as coveted as Alexander Nikishin. As he sets the KHL on fire with his amazing skating ability, his size, physical brand of play, and scoring ability, the Hurricanes may have just found their next franchise defenseman. Size, strength, and skating ability. These are the foundations of Alexander Nikishin's game. His edge work allows him to bait and deceive forecheckers. This also gives him great abilities to move the puck on transition and distribute it, as well as execute well-timed offensive zone entries. His capabilities skating combined with his frame make it difficult to take a puck away from Nikishin. Once he decides where he wants to be positioned, a combination of brute force and finesse will take over. With edge work this proficient, creates his own passing lanes and creates his own shooting lanes. This makes him a constant offensive threat, as he can always look for open ice, to position himself well to shoot, or to be a passing option, and preemptively position himself to defend off of the rush. Even more impressive than his edge work is his speed. Nikishin seamlessly transitions into his stride, has excellent acceleration and great stride extension. This allows him to create time and space or reduce time and space as needed, with or without the puck. This skating ability also lends itself well to the defensive side of his game, as he has very aggressive gap control. Puck carriers have little to no time to make a decision with Alexander Nikishin on the ice, and his upper body strength gives him excellent poke checking ability. But the real calling card of his defensive game is his physicality. One of the reasons why Alexander Nikishin has the nickname of Boom is his ability to lay seismic, thunderous hip checks. Being stable on his skates and having incredible core strength gives him this checking ability, and he uses it to ruthlessly deny entry. Nikishin's intimidating physicality can single-handedly neutralize a rush. Even if the puck carrier manages to chip it past Nikishin, he'll make sure that that's as far as they go. He never passes up an opportunity to finish a hit, and everyone knows it. A lot of times, puck carriers will distribute errant passes, and this results in a lot of turnovers. And if nothing else, those are forced just by Nikishin's presence alone. This high-intensity game extends to him defending in and around his own net, where he uses his strength to not allow a net front presence to materialize, and to help out his goaltender. Nikishin also has an impressive shot blocking ability. Using his frame and pure athleticism, this adds another layer of sandpaper on top of all the skill. This high-intensity style of play also lends itself to the other end of the ice. Nikishin is very aggressive at pinching, keeping pucks in, and keeping plays alive. Nikishin often acts as a fourth forward, and you'll find him spending a lot of time deep in the offensive zone, contributing to creating scoring chances. These situations are where the decisiveness in Alexander Nikishin's game stands out the most. Nikishin plays a zero-hesitation game and is incredibly confident when he has the puck. As an extension of his abilities and his desire to keep the play going at the other end of the ice, he generates a lot of high-danger chances of his own. Even with all those capabilities, he generates even more offense off of the rush. With a good hockey IQ that's only going to get better, Alexander Nikishin identifies the perfect time to join the rush and where to find open ice to make himself the best passing option and to maximize his positioning for the best shot opportunity. Another noticeable thing about Alexander Nikishin's game is that he is always mobile. His feet are always moving. Even at his own blue line, he is constantly positioning himself to make the next best play. This adds another layer to his very nuanced offensive game of being a puck distributor and a shooter. Alexander Nikishin also has great vision, and he uses it in all three zones. This is where his constant skating and his vision are a deadly combination. Nikishin makes stretch passes that have similar mechanics to most players taking a wrist shot. They are very crisp, they are very decisive, and they almost always get to their intended recipient. He also uses this great passing ability in the offensive zone, making cross-ice seam passes materialize seemingly out of nowhere at times. The high-intensity game that Alexander Nikishin plays is also supplemented by his two-way game. His speed allows him to play a high-risk, high-reward brand of offense, and have the speed to get back to cover defensively. All of these things combined make Alexander Nikishin valuable at both ends of the ice, and in all situations, be it regulation, overtime, 5-on-5, power play, or penalty kill. But as proficient as his ability to pass the puck, his timing joining the rush, wrist shots, and snapshots are, he has one weapon in his offensive arsenal even deadlier than that. The other reason Alexander Nikishin has the nickname of Boom is that it's the most descriptive word every time that he takes a slap shot or a one-timer. Nikishin has the art of the one-timer down to a science. His shots are not only powerful, but they're accurate, and while he's capable in all situations, the power play might be where he stands out the most. Nikishin's one-timer strikes fear into penalty killers, and forces them to pay attention to where he's at on the ice well before he has possession of the puck. With Nikishin having great edge work and being an active defenseman, the abilities as a distributor and the abilities as a shooter make Nikishin the ideal power play quarterback. He identifies the best times to shoot, the best...
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. It is good to see you. Let me check my mic settings here one more time because it likes to... Okay. There we go. All right. Had to fix that. It loves to jump over to the mic that's attached to the webcam, which is not very good at all. Hope everyone's having a good Saturday. The weather's actually pretty nice here where I'm at for once. So Canes are doing really good lately. And the biggest thing I'm looking for today, I would like for them to win, obviously, but at the same time, it's more so I just don't want the wheels to start coming off more than anything. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but maintaining consistency right now is the most important thing that they can do. Let me try and adjust this a little bit. Got it fixed. Okay. But yeah, so the biggest thing here is I'm looking for consistency out of the Canes and moving the needle on the power play in particular to get it to a point where if they just get it above 20%, I would be happy for right now and then continue to work on that from now until the end of the season. I saw a tweet. I can't find it, but yeah, thanks, J-Dub. I noticed that at the last second. I'm going to get a different mic. This is not working. I might donate this to Captain Caniac or Missouri Mike because they're both looking to start shows of their own, which I'll make sure to let everyone know about that. But I am going to have to take a break at some point during the show so I can order myself some Euro because I'm coming off of a 28-hour fast and I'm ready to eat. So here's the things that we have to look at with the Canes here. Let me go ahead and get the slides up. And I'll get to some of the comments here real quick before we get started. Josh, what's up, bro? He got hurt last game, though. Yeah, he got speared in the nuts. That just did not look painful. And I think he's more concerned with his – I mean, I don't know the guy, and this is just speculation on my part. I do know someone who has a connection to him, but I'm not going to talk about that just yet. I think maybe he's a little bit more concerned with his NHL career now than he is his SKA one because they – went in like the 7th seed in their conference in the KHL. So I don't know how big their Gagarin Cup aspirations are at this point. We'll see. Also, I know there's been a lot of discussions about whether he would slot into the lineup or not. At the end of the show, if we have time, I will talk about that. J-Dub, what's up, buddy? Can't wait for him in Carolina. Going to be so awesome. Yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to that. As long as he wears 21, I'll get his sweater pretty much on day one. I really will. But I have to know that, you know, that he's like going to be here before I go through with all that and everything. Actually, this setup is weird. I don't know why it's got my face all the way up here. Josh says absolutely right. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Yes, I was muted. Thank you, J-Dub. Yeah, I got that fixed. I'm going to get a different mic. This one's not working out for me. At least I need a different microphone. Boom. I like this microphone a lot, but I'm going to have to do something different here. Josh says, just like last game against the Sharks, they had one goal that was freak against Anderson from the play by Burns. Yeah, and, you know, I know Burns catches a lot of heat, and he gets some of it from me at times. But in that situation, when he left his feet, he did the right thing. So I don't put that entirely on him. Yeah, I was kind of pissed off when it happened, but that's not 110% his fault by any means. And I'm glad that Rod didn't let me close these curtains here because the sunlight's peeking in. I'm glad Rod didn't think to challenge that, because that was one of those ones that I don't think Carolina would have won. Then San Jose goes on the power play, and they have a chance to like really take a stranglehold on that game early. And that team's record does not reflect how good it actually is, in my opinion, and how good they're going to be. 3 or 4 seasons from now, San Jose is going to probably be a relatively competitive not Metro 3, but Pacific 3 wildcard 1 team. And then beyond that, they'll be a very competitive team down the road. By 2030, they're going to be one of the big name teams in the National Hockey League, if you ask me. Josh also says, but they stayed consistent and came away with the W. Yeah, they got a little bit better as the game went along. They got a little bit better in the second period. And the third period, I felt like they were really playing to their strengths. I know I posted the whole joke about, oh, wait, we're going up against at the time, the only team eliminated from playoff contention coming off a 5-day break. The only thing that was missing was it being a matinee game. And, I was like, we usually don't do well in these games. And overall, the Hurricanes were not good that night until the third period. So, again, consistency is the big thing, just like you're saying. Dylan Bollinger says, Kings are very good at home. We have to be very good tonight. I agree. I meant today. Today, same thing. Have to have a good game here. All right. So I'm going to, since I've talked this entire time, I'm just going to go ahead and say this real quick. This is my disclaimer to tell everybody I don't own any of the logos. I don't own the National Hockey League. I don't own any of the stats here. I've pulled them all from other sources. I have not drafted them or anything like that on my own. And I wanted to give credit to all the potential sources that you see stats from. Primarily, I pull from Natural Stat Trick, Money Puck, NHL.com, Puckpedia, and StatMuse. That's where I get most of my stuff, but occasionally I dabble in the other websites listed here. And then now we're going on to the next one. All right, so the overall big picture here. Hurricanes are 42-22-4. Los Angeles is 37-21-9. Forgive the relevant records. I didn't have time to update those, but like Dylan said, LA is really good at home. Carolina is 9-1-0 in their last 10, and they've won 8 in a row. It's not sustainable, but let's see if they can come away with one today against a really good team. And then they have another trap game tomorrow with the Anaheim Ducks. I'll try and do a show for that one as well. All right, so overall goal differential. This is something that's kind of uncharacteristic when the Hurricanes go up against a really good team. They have a significantly higher goal differential, and they're scoring at a much, much higher pace than the other team. That is not normally the circumstances when the Canes go up against I don't want to say a near peer threat, but it's pretty close. So Hurricanes have a plus 43 goal differential with 224 and 177 against. A lot of that is contributed due to the last 8 games going really, really well for the Canes on both sides of the ice. LA has a 189 to 179 plus 16 goal differential. So this is something I'm going to talk about a lot. This is one of those games where scoring saturation, a high-scoring, high-event game, might be in the Hurricanes' favor as opposed to a lot of other times that they're playing really good teams. Goals for per game, Carolina has 3.24. They rank 8th in the NHL. Los Angeles only scoring 2.81 per game. They rank 22nd. Goals against per game, the Hurricanes are 6th with 2.6 per game. The Los Angeles Kings, 2.54 per game in third. Biggest thing I want to note with the goals against per game for the Hurricanes, if it's below 3, typically that's good news. I would like to get it below 2.5, so that way when it's sitting below 2.5, that means that they're typically not giving up 3 goals, and Hurricanes tend to win low-scoring games, especially when they're not giving up 3 or more. Power play, this is the one thing the Hurricanes really, really got to improve on. Today's a good day to maybe try and get it done, even though LA's penalty kill is really good. Goals against per game, penalty kill, or I'm sorry, power play, 17.9%. That's got to go up, or the Hurricanes are not going to last long in the playoffs. That's something that if they get it up to 25%, then I think that they come back into being in the discussion of being a conference final team and ultimately a team that can go to the Stanley Cup Finals. But that's one thing. The needle has to start moving in the right direction. They've got to start at least potting 1 for every 5 to get it back to 20%, 1 for every 4 to get it up to 25%, or anything higher than that would be ideal. But that's the biggest weakness the Hurricanes have right now. LA, their power play is not much better, or is not any better really, sitting at 15.3%, and they are 28th in the NHL. Penalty kill, pretty close here. Hurricanes still ranked first with 84.8. and 81.5 for the Los Angeles Kings, first and ninth, respectively. Special teams overall net positive. The Hurricanes have a little bit of advantage there. Face-offs, pretty close. Both of these teams are above 50. Hurricanes sitting at 52.6, whereas the Kings are sitting at 50.5. So that can give you a little bit of a simple possession advantage today. So I want to give a big shout out to Jack Jablonski. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I went on LA's website to look at what their projected lineups might be and all that type of stuff, and I found this. And there were a lot of really good notes here for us to talk about to this game that are really relevant. So the Hurricanes 10-3-1 against Pacific Division teams and have outscored their opponents 26-22 across those 14 games. The Hurricanes enter Saturday as the hottest team in the NHL, having won their last 8 games. During that stretch, the Hurricanes are just allowing 1.25 goals against average. That is excellent. Anything below 2.5 is bellwether good for this team, but 1.25, that is great. It says expected starter Frederik Andersen. I was under the impression that Kochekov was starting today. I could be wrong. I don't know why I think that it was going to be him, but I really thought it was going to be Kochekov starting today. He's won 4 straight games since entering Saturday. Has stopped 92 of the last 98 shots for a .958 save percentage. Again, excellent on Freddie's part. Glad to see that he's playing this well. So we're not going to talk about Mikko Rantanen, but who we will talk about is Logan Stankoven has notched a goal and an assist in his last 5 games. I think this guy's going to be really good for us the more that he adapts. He has a very similar skill set to Seth Jarvis, to Jackson Blake, so he's ultimately going to be a really, really good fit. Leading scorer, Sebastian Aho, we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to the team leader slide. Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns have played 1,001 minutes and 19 seconds together this season, the second most minutes together in the NHL. The duo have been together on the ice for an NHL most 46 goal scoring among defensive pairs. Wouldn't expect that with some of the narratives, particularly around Burns, and Jacob Slavin's not known for providing a ton of offense. What he does provide a lot of is possession by way of forcing turnovers. Jacob Slavin, when I do my next installment in the 6 dimensions of Jacob Slavin, I'm really going to break this down. Slavin is not only a guy that plays defense, he plays the possession game as well. He opts for the safe passes, the low risk plays, low risk, high reward type of plays when he has possession of the puck. And that's part of the reason why his possession metrics are so high and his individual scoring is not the highest, but he does contribute offensively. It just doesn't show up on the score sheet, but he contributes a lot to the Hurricanes having the dominant puck possession that they have a lot of times. When Burns 39 steps on the ice on Saturday, he will have played in his 911th consecutive NHL game, passing his former teammate Patrick Marleau for 5th all-time on the list of most consecutive games. They talked about that a lot during the broadcast against the game with San Jose. So we'll keep an eye on that. Kings notes, Trevor Moore, he enters Saturday's matinee with a 3-game goal streak of 4, no assists against the Hurricanes dating back to October 14th, 2023. Lovely, a Canes killer. Trevor Moore and Alex Turcotte scored twice within 60 seconds on Thursday night in Chicago, the 10th time the Kings have done so this season. The only teams to do so more in the 24-25 era or season are Vancouver with 14, Carolina with 12, Boston, Seattle, and Vegas all with 11. Philip Deneau, this guy's a really, really good shutdown player, and he's very physical. We're going to talk about him here in a little bit. 5 points in his last 2 games versus Carolina, while Vlad Gavrikov has 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points in his last 3 matchups with the Hurricanes. So he's highlighting here, Jack is some of these guys that do play really well historically against Carolina. With his assist on Thursday night at United Center, Jordan Spence, since 1 helper shy of recording his second consecutive 20-assist season, 3 points shy of his first career 25-point campaign. Jordan Spence has a very underrated playmaking puck distribution game, and only the Winnipeg Jets 164 have conceded less goals in this league than this season than the Kings 170. The team's 1,705 shots allowed are also the second lowest, only behind Carolina, 1,675. Now, suffice to say here, this is going to be quite the defensive matchup on paper. This is one of those games where the Hurricanes scoring saturation, high event type of game could go in their favor. Like, it's a lot more likely than what it is normally. Players to watch, Quentin Byfield, who's riding a 7-game home point streak, 10 points total in that time. Taylor Hall, who enters Saturday on a 4-game point streak with 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points in the last 4 games. Great acquisition by the Canes. it could really he could really be a difference maker going down the stretch. I've really liked seeing him playing with Jesperi Kotkaniemi in particular. I think a line with him, Svechnikov, and Kotkaniemi is something that has some semi-long-term sustainability for the next couple of seasons. I'm still expecting Taylor Hall to sign with the Hurricanes. He's already stated that he's interested in doing so because he's bounced around a lot in his career. So I think he wants to finally have some stability in his career. So I think that he would like to stay. It seems like he would like to stay. And I think for the right price, something around $3 million a season for 3 seasons, something along those lines would be a really good deal for someone like Taylor Hall. He's got a lot of speed. He brings a scoring touch, and he's got a ton of experience. And with all the young guys that we have in the lineup, that's incredibly helpful to them. And he's even helpful to some of our guys that are kind of in between. They've not been in the league for a super long time, but they're important core players of the team, such as Sebastian Aho. All right, so team leaders. Seth Jarvis, 27 goals for the Canes. For only having one shoulder, that boy's got a hell of a shot. Adrian Kempe has 28. Sebastian Aho with 39 assists. Anze Kopitar with 37. Sebastian Aho with a total of 65 points. Adrian Kempe with a total of 55 points. So again, you're even seeing here reflected in the leading scorer aspect. Carolina leads in that regard on an individual basis. For context about how well Sebastian Aho has been playing and how much he's been producing, the last time I got to do one of these shows, Aho only had 38 points, and now he's got 65. That he's having a really, really good season. I don't know if it's going to top the one he had last year, or in my opinion, his true best season was the 2019-2020 season that got shortened by a virus that totally didn't come from a lab in China. That season, I felt like he really had a good shot at getting at least into the top 5 of the Selke voting because of how well he was playing defensively. And in the last few seasons, he's really taken an extra step with the playmaking aspect of things. So is he a little bit too selfless at times like his good buddy Teuvo Teravainen? Very much so. So there is some things I'm looking for Aho to adjust with his game. More than anything, one thing he's been doing lately on entry, he's generating a good amount of clean entries. It seems like more than normal. But instead of him trying, and he's a talented enough player to do this, instead of him taking it to the house himself and shooting, or at least trying to work in tight before he distributes the puck, he's hitting the brakes right after entry and trying to hold up and wait for 1 or 2 guys to catch up to him and everything. I think that's something that he can change a little bit with his game, be a little bit more attack focused when he gets into the offensive zone, and I think good things will come for him. Andrei Svechnikov still leads the Hurricanes with 9 power play goals. That has not changed since the last time I've done one of these shows. Part of that is because he's been out due to injury, and part of that's because the power play has not been good. He's got to be better, though, on an individual basis, power play and 5-on-5 both. But we could really use that little bit of a scoring touch he has. Not as much of one as we hoped we had with him when we drafted him, at least not right now. He's got to find an extra gear with that if the Canes are really going to take the next step. Shots on goal, Andrei Svechnikov leads with 178. Adrian Kempe has 9. Forgive me, I forgot to mention that the Kings' leading power play goal scorer is Kevin Fiala, who also has 9. And then going into shots blocked, Jacob Slavin has 123, Vlad Gavrikov with 120, and average time on ice, Jacob Slavin, of course, leads with 21.47 per game, Drew Doughty with 25.17 per game. So that veteran presence that Drew Doughty brings, they're still really, really leaning on that. All right, so 5-on-5 forecast with the lines. You'll notice that these dates are a little bit outdated to today. The Canes, it doesn't look like there's any changes. I'm under the impression that Kochekov is going to be in net. We will see. But Jarvis, Aho, Blake, I really like that line. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but there's a lot of speed there. There's a lot of defensive capability. There's a lot of puck pursuit. You get a ton of puck pursuit out of those 3 guys, so they can sustain a lot of offensive zone pressure for a long time, especially if they're out there with Gostisbehere and Walker, it seems like. Hall, Kotkaniemi, Roslovic, I don't see any reason why that would be any different. Martin Stahl, Stankoven, that line's fine. I would still like to see Blake with that line personally. I know I've harped on that multiple times, but with Svechnikov being out, I understand why things are kind of jumbled up right now. Robinson, Jankowski, Yost. Additionally, the Canes did recall Juha Jaksa. I don't know who's out or who could be out or what the reason for that is. I'm waiting and keeping an eye on it myself. And then the defense, it has it listed like this, but the way I remember, even though I was half asleep watching the San Jose game the other night, I don't remember the pairs looking like this, where it had Walker with Chatfield and Gostisbehere with Orlov. Maybe Walt made a mistake there because these are the lines from the warm-up at the Shark Tank. there's no reason to change the defensive pairings. I think they've been great. Of course, the one change I think the Hurricanes are going to make today is Kochekov will be in net today. I don't see any reason why Anderson would start with the way that the Hurricanes have been performing the rotation lately. So credit to Zach Dooley here. Of course, credit to Walt Ruff. Credit to Zach Dooley here for the Kings line rushes. These are from the 17th. It was the latest thing I could find over on Game Day tweets. Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Kempe. That's a line you got to watch out for. Kuzmenko is one of those guys that goes to the front of the net and works really hard to get loose pucks and to dig them out of the corners, go below the goal line and do all the greasy work so he can make those really quick centering passes that he's really good at and go to the front of the net, use his hand-eye coordination for tips and deflections. Kuzmenko is excellent at those things. Anze Kopitar is one of the best two-way players in the game, and he has a great playmaking touch to boot. There's a reason he leads them in assists. Adrian Kempe is their dynamic winger, and he produces a lot for them. So that's one of the other things you got to look out for. Now, when you look at the second line here, it doesn't look very dangerous on paper, but that's an identity line right there. Familiar face, one of my personal favorites from back in the day, Warren Fogle, Philip Deneau, who's a really, really good shutdown player that's starting to really develop a little bit more of an offensive upside, and then Trevor Moore. So that line, like I said, doesn't look dangerous on paper, but it's one that you definitely got to keep an eye on. This third line is nothing to sneeze at either. Kevin Fiala, Quentin Byfield, and Alexis Laferriere, not to be confused with Alexis Lafreniere. And then their fourth line, checking line, really physical. Tanner Jeannot, Helenas, Alex Turcotte. And then their defense, also not bad at all. That top pair in particular will provide them a good amount of shutdown ability. Mikey Anderson is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the game. He's up and coming. People are starting to realize how good he is. Drew Doughty doesn't need an introduction. He's a former Norris Trophy winner. Very, very defensively competent. Chips in plenty of offense to boot. Second one there, Jordan Spence has, like I said before, has a really good playmaking touch, and him and Gavrikov have some really good chemistry on that second pair. And the third pair, another one of my personal favorites from back in the day, Joel Edmondson paired with Brant Clark. So that defense, it's not as good as Carolina, but it's not the big amount. It's not the giant separation. It's a lot closer than one would think between how good Carolina's defense is and how good LA's defense is. And if you're talking overall team defense, this is going to be a close game in that regard. This is one of the ones where the Hurricanes maybe can go for the scoring saturation route and really, really improve what they're doing here. So, and then goalies, Kempfer did start for them the last game, but I think he's going to start tonight. I don't have anything to back that up. I've looked around to see who's starting for them, and I haven't seen it yet, and that's reflected in the edge data, that I'm under the impression that it's going to be Kochekov versus Kempfer playing. If not, I think it'll be Kochekov versus Riddick, but we'll see. It seems like that since they had a day off, Kempfer will be the guy that goes. I don't think they rotate their goalies the same way Carolina does. We will see. All right, NHL edge data, team speed. Hurricanes have a really, really big advantage here, especially since they brought in Jankowski and Stankoven. Both of those guys have wheels. They are incredibly fast skaters, and they're not just fast. They know what to do when they get to where they're supposed to go. So whether that's forechecking, back checking, puck pursuit, anything like that, they're both very smart players. Jankowski, I don't want to say he's at his ceiling, but you know what you're getting with him. He's not going to continue to score at the pace he's scoring at, but that's not what he was brought in for. But when he does shoot the puck, when he does have time and space and he picks his corner, when he's in that correct spot to do so, he has a cannon. And that's reflected in the fact that he, for a little while, had a 100% shooting percentage here when he first came to Carolina. So that was a sneaky good pickup at first, but now it's out in the open how good that guy really is to fit in, as a fit in Carolina's system. So the Hurricanes have a 24.49 max speed versus the LA Kings having 23.40. And speed is normally on Carolina's side, but it's really going to be on their side today. And if you think that this is a high average now, next year when Morrow and Nikishin are in the lineup, and if you add someone in free agency like Nikolai Ehlers, if you trade for someone like Matthew Nyes, who I'm looking at more and more that maybe the Hurricanes are going to try to trade for him or offer sheet him with all those picks they got for the Rantanen trade, and this team is going to be incredible next season. But the one we have right now has a legitimate chance to win. It's not a big chance to win the whole thing. It's not a big one, but it is a chance to do so. All right, NHL edge data, shooting. You'll see where the Kings or where the Hurricanes are scoring their goals at. They're getting them from a little bit of everywhere, but they're getting a lot of greasy goals right in front of the net lately. So the point shooting, I don't think it's necessarily designed to score itself. A lot of the low to high puck cycling and everything like that what it does more than anything, it's supposed to create rebound opportunities in front of the net. That's one of the reasons they brought in Mikko Rantanen, is he's supposed to be one of those guys that could finish on a lot of those chances where a lot of other players can't. But the guys we have now are getting that done at the moment, so there's nothing to worry about there. LA, you'll see kind of the same thing, decent amount of volume shooting, but ultimately the Hurricanes are out shooting them 21-49 to 1877. Goals, Hurricanes have 220 versus 188. Again, not very normal when they're playing against a pretty decent team, or a pretty good team, I'll say, in LA. Shooting percentage, they have a very slight advantage there, 0.2%. 10.2 versus 10. If the Hurricanes can get that shooting percentage up to more like 12, 13, then they're going to be in business, and I think that they will get there. Everything's going in the, minus the power play, everything is going in the right direction right now. Zone data, of course, Hurricanes have a dominant offensive zone presence when compared to the Los Angeles Kings. Neutral zone, it's pretty close, 18.5 to 18, or 18.5 for LA to 18.2 for the Hurricanes. And then lastly, the Hurricanes don't spend a whole lot of time in their own end, primarily because they spend so much time in the offensive zone, 34.7% to 40% in the defensive zone for the Kings. So if you can capitalize on all that offensive zone time and score early, especially, and then play with a lead, the Hurricanes will be in good shape today. Again, I'm not entirely sure who, you know what, give me a second. I'm going to check Money Puck to see if that's updated yet, because that's usually where I go look to see if they've announced any starters. No starters announced for either side. So I think this is going to be the goaltending matchup. I don't have a crystal ball to look in and tell you, and I haven't seen any announcement about it whatsoever. And I haven't got any texts about it or anything, so this is just speculation on my part. Pyotr Kochetkov has quietly had a really, really good season. The reason I say quietly is because there's a lot of doubts about his abilities. At a minimum, though, this guy has proved that he is a serviceable 1B goalie, and that the Hurricanes should keep him long-term, if nothing else, for that, unless a better option comes along. His record is 25 wins, 11 losses, 3 overtime losses, 2.37 goals against average, save percentage of 908 in 40 games played. The biggest thing I want to talk about here with Kochetkov is a lot of situations where he was getting a little spastic, where he wasn't practicing as much control as he should have. He's actually overcome a lot of those things. He's still got work to do. He's got a long way to go. But Kochetkov is one of those guys. We had a saying when I was in the Navy, it's better to have someone you have to rein in than someone you have to kick in the ass and get more out of. Kochetkov is the former of that statement. The potential is there. He's a diamond in the rough, and there's a little bit less dirt on him now than there was before. Will he get to where he's a 1A or a legitimate starter remains to be seen. That potential has never gone away, though, in my opinion. So this is one of those things where I think the Hurricanes, with the question marks they have going into the offseason about the goaltending, whether Freddie will be back or not, which he might have to come back. He may just have to come back just out of the simple fact that we have no idea what the goalie market is going to look like, and it's not been good for several seasons now. It may not be good in the future, really. We'll see how all that plays out, but right now Kochetkov, I think, is still someone that has at least 1B potential, very good 1B potential. So looking up against Darcy Kemper here, he has gotten much better since he was traded from traded from the Washington Capitals to the Los Angeles Kings for Pierre-Luc Dubois. He has 23 wins, 9 losses, 7 overtime losses. Not the greatest record, but he's still getting 7 occasions where he might not have got points he did with 7 overtime losses. Goals against average of 2.13. So when he is having good performances, he's having good performances. Save percentage of 0.919 in 40 games played. Kochetkov has a little bit better of a defensive team in front. Marginally, it looks like on paper, marginally better defensive team in front of him than Darcy Kemper does. Kemper is still playing significantly better than he was last season. So that's one thing to look out for tonight. Now, as far as where they're giving up goals from, you'll see that high danger save percentage, mid-range save percentage. That's one of those weird things that Kochetkov is normally higher in those regards, especially the high danger save percentage, than the opposing goalie. That's not the case tonight. Kochetkov has an 8.54 high danger save percentage versus Kemper's 0.861. Mid-range save percentage 8.08 for Kochetkov, 880 mid-range save percentage for Kochetkov, 908 for Darcy Kemper. So you're not going to get a lot of soft goals past Darcy Kemper, and you can see that reflected in the map as well. So this is one of those nights where the Hurricanes really have to play to their strengths and get a lot of pucks on net, make those second, generate those juicy rebounds and get those second chances to bury it in a lot of situations against other goalies where they might not need to do that so much. Kemper's one of those guys where he's a battler. He really is. He fights to see through traffic, and he plays his angles really well. So that's one of those things that you really have to take into regard with the goaltending matchup tonight. Now, going into potential advantages here, overall 5-on-5 play, I'm going to say the Canes are significantly better, or I won't say significantly better, but the better team in that regard. High producing forwards, I'm going to say the Kings, but close. The only reason that I'm saying that, because I call these potential advantages because I don't reflect everything that's on paper. I just talk about the potential of the players on any given particular game. So the Kings have scoring forwards that could potentially produce more than the Hurricanes do, primarily Kopitar and Kempe and Kuzmenko, that first line that we were talking about. When you're talking about overall forward depth, I'm taking the Canes there. Overall defense, it's close, kind of close, not super close, but it's closer than a lot may think. I'm taking the Canes there. Power play unit 1, Kings, and overall power play Kings. The reason I say that is not so much the personnel that they have or anything like that. It's just the Hurricanes have been on the backslide with the power play for a while. It looks like it's going in the right direction, but as of right now, there's not a single power play in this league that I think is legitimately just more fundamentally unsound and not working as bad as the Hurricanes power play is. Maybe they can really start changing that tonight, but it absolutely just has not been going well for them. Penalty kill, I'm giving that edge to the Canes. Goaltending, I'll give that edge to the Kings, but it's close regardless of what matchup that we have, even though I don't think we're going to see Freddie and I don't think we're going to see David Riddick. Overall advantage to the Canes. I think that they can and will win this game. All right, winning elements. As talked about before, stay hot, play to your strengths. So a lot of offensive zone time. Finish on those low to high shots. Go get those juicy rebounds. Don't let Los Angeles out of their zone. This is one of those nights where, or one of those games where the Hurricanes can really, really play to their strengths and get it done. Limit the defensive zone time. LA, they're not scoring a ton. Don't give them the opportunity. And the longer and longer you persistently keep them from getting on the board, the bigger likeliness you have to win. This is one of those games where I think the first goal, maybe the first 2 goals, are going to be incredibly critical in the outcome. Move the needle on the power play. Get a power play goal tonight. If you can get a power play goal tonight, you move things in the right direction, and then maybe they can build that confidence there. And then lastly, and I've already kind of touched on this, scoring is a higher possible net positive than normal today. So the Hurricanes really, really need to put a greater emphasis on scoring against a team that struggles to score but is still really good defensively like LA is. And I think that is everything. Yep, because these 3 slides here, like it takes a while to fill them out, so I normally don't do them. But let me go ahead and take that off the board there and get to some of the comments. Daniel Barr, what's up, buddy? Please let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, by the way. Aho hunting his shot was one of the most encouraging things from the Shark game. Yes. Yeah, if he can keep doing that, because he tries to pass it in a lot of situations where he just needs to. He's a very skilled player. He's got a really good shot. It's amazing to me that he can use the longest allowable stick for his length, uses a low kick point stick, which is a little bit better with the Vapor Hyperlight that he uses now, as opposed to the Warrior Covert QR sticks he used to use, because I had a Warrior Covert QR stick. I mean, I hate low kicks to begin with, but I had one because I got a good deal on it, so I bought it. And it feels like the kick point of that thing is in the heel. So how he was able to get those really, really heavy clap bombs off with that low kick point stick is amazing to me. The Hyperlight, the kick point in it is a little bit higher, and I think that he's overall been better with that stick. He started using it last year, but he needs to shoot the puck more. He really does. There's a lot of situations where I'm like, Fishy, please, it's not going to kill you. Shoot the damn puck. So hopefully he'll kind of get out of that mentality a little bit. I understand why he's a pass-first guy. He kind of always has been. But like I said, what I quietly believe was his best season, the closest that he legitimately got to a Selke was 2019-2020. And he was 2 goals away from 40, and there were 14 games left when the stoppage happened. So he could have got 40 with his eyes closed. I mean, people were talking about him potentially getting 45, 50, and that was totally possible. So I know Aho is not the typical fuck it, I'll do it myself mentality. He's a team guy. But there are times where he just needs to, in my opinion, say, fuck it, I'll do it myself. That's easy for me to say sitting here on this computer and being a guy who plays pickup hockey once or twice a month. But I just think that he needs to really harness that capability that he has to create time and space for himself and picking where he wants to put the puck, because he's totally capable of that. So I'm hoping that that's one thing he'll draw back a little bit on the playmaking and start trying to create that individual effort offense that he's really good at, because I can't tell you the number of times, whether it's shorthanded 5-on-5, whatever, that he has those individual effort plays where he executes a really good takeaway, takes 2 steps, creates a ton of separation, and then has all the time in the world to put the puck where he wants to after that. He's just looking for the pass just a little bit too often. It's a small adjustment that he needs to make that I think will carry the Canes a long way. And when I get through the rest of the comments, I'm going to go into an extended dialogue about Aho here, because I've been really impressed with him this season. I really have. I know he had a little bit of a slow start, but that's just how he is as a player. He always has his 10 or 15 game nap, and he still comes out point per game. If he ever overcomes that, he'll be a 100-point player, even in Rod's system. So not that I think he needs 100 points. I really don't, but J-Dub says, going to be a tough game, need some consistency, win or lose. Ought to be a fun one, though. Yeah, consistency is the key here with this one. That's the biggest thing that we have to look for here with this. Even if they lose today, as long as they don't go out there and get absolutely shellacked, that's all that matters. I would like for them to win, but it's been 8 in a row. Law of averages. There's no way in hell that they're going to win every game from now until the end of the season. It's just not going to happen. And you still got a few more tough matchups coming up, so we'll see how that goes. Josh says, I've heard a lot about this. Maybe you'll talk about it later, but do you think Rod lets Nikishin play with the Canes in the playoff berth, or wait until next season? I'd like to see him before the end of April, but I know realistically it's probably not going to happen. Your thoughts? If everyone is healthy, I do not think Nikishin plays. Regardless of what I personally think about that. He still has to learn the system, and he still has to get acclimated to his teammates. I don't think he speaks any English yet, so that's another thing. So there will be the language barrier, the communication issue that has to be factored in. So you have to think about those things. If someone on the blue line does come out of the lineup, I think you put him in. I don't think that there's anything to lose there. If you have an injury or something like that, I think that that would be a good time to explore Nikishin being in the lineup. I really do. Now, a lot of people have said they would like to see Nikishin playing with Slavin. I also do not see that happening for 2 reasons. One, it's kind of an industry standard, but it seems like the Hurricanes really place an emphasis on it of not having 2 defensemen of the same handedness on the same pair, and they're both left-handed shots. So I think that if an exception is ever going to be made in that regard, it will be Nikishin. The second thing being the Hurricanes try to have an even distribution among their defensemen. So they want, like, for example, when you look at the Hurricanes defense on paper, you have a shutdown guy and a safety valve. Shutdown safety valve guy and someone who's more of a offensive producer. Slavin is the safety valve. Burns is the guy that normally produces more, even though he hadn't done it a ton lately. When you look at the second pair, it's a little bit more even there, but most of the offense, most of the possession that goes through that pair is from Orlov. Chatfield's more the shutdown guy. The third pair, I think, is the one that actually balances the defensive responsibilities the most. I'd say it's 60-40 Gostisbehere as far as the defense goes, and most of the offense is provided by Gostisbehere, but Walker is going to take an extra step in that regard, and Walker is someone in the future, depending on how the defense is constructed, Walker is someone I would love to see with Slavin. I would absolutely love to see him play with Slavin. I think it would have some similar characteristics to the pair of Brock Faber and Jacob Slavin from the Four Nations face-off, and USA Hockey is absolutely stupid if they don't have that pair out there for the Olympics next year. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So I really think that if there's an exception going to be made of having 2 left-handed defensemen on the same pair, long-term, it'll be Nikishin and Slavin, but Chatfield I think will do just fine with Nikishin. You could maybe put Walker with him. There's a multitude of options there. I've seen some people say Nikishin and Morrow. I wouldn't do that personally. I don't think that there's enough defensive capability between those 2 guys. That's just me, though. We'll see how it shakes out, because they're probably going to try some different things in camp, having those new guys coming in. Morrow does not have much left to learn at the American Hockey League level based on what I've seen of him up here at the NHL level recently. But Morrow's a very high-risk, high-reward type of player. So, if he's on the team next year, Slavin's probably who he's going to be with. And that's historically accurate to how the Hurricanes do things. You had Dougie Hamilton, you had Tony DeAngelo, you had Brent Burns that all played with Slavin. They tried Ethan Bear for a little while. I didn't like Ethan Bear. Like, as a player, I don't have any complaints about him as a person, obviously, because I don't really follow the players as people as some people do, like to the extent that they do. But Slavin is historically done best when he's with a guy on his right that is there to produce offense, someone who will pinch aggressively, someone who will step up in the neutral zone aggressively and try to make those risky passes. And they do that, Tony D'Angelo being a good example of it, they do that with a lot more confidence than what they would with a lot of other defensive partners because they know they have Jacob Slavin in their corner to clean up any mistakes that they make. So that's one thing to keep in mind with that. Josh also says Taylor Hall has really impressed me too. Looks like he's bringing back Prime Hall, and Kane's Hockey are bringing him back to that compared to the Blackhawks the last couple of seasons. Yeah, the biggest thing about Taylor Hall, here, let me get a sip of this. I'm like talking a lot here, so. Yes, sparkling water, one of my favorite things. One of the biggest things to remember here when it comes to Taylor Hall, when he was on the Oilers for a while before they traded him for, I believe it was Adam Larson, if I remember correctly, which I remember that trade being like controversial and a total meme a lot of times. If he's I don't want to say a core player, but he's also not a depth player. He's a utilitarian guy that you can move up and down the lineup, kind of like you could do with Jesper Fast. He's one of those guys that brings that extra experience, the speed and everything else like that, but you can move him up and down the lineup as you need to. And he falls right in that category between being just a depth guy and being a core member of the team. So that's how he bolsters the lineup, is he just falls right in between those two categories. I would say he leans more towards being kind of a core guy at this point with the way that he's playing. So that's one thing to consider with Taylor Hall and why I think the Canes really need to keep him long-term, because he's a very versatile player that is useful in so many different situations. If the second power play unit ever gets going, I think it's going to be Taylor Hall, the guy that really lights that fire. But I also wouldn't mind seeing Taylor Hall on the first unit if they really just can't get it going and need to mix things up again. Taylor Hall could be really, really good there. Leva Leto says, hi, everyone. These lines have been looking really good. Yes, I've been very impressed with the lines. I'm interested to see what they do once Svechnikov comes back to the lineup and once Carrier comes back to the lineup. And then they got a really tough decision because they got to scratch somebody at that point once Carrier and Svechnikov are back in. And, this is actually an interesting discussion. I talked about it in one of the group chats I'm in on X, and then I talked about it with my friends from Caniac Sessions and Caniac Report because we talk like every day. We were discussing who comes out of the lineup in the event that everyone's healthy, because if everyone's healthy, somebody's going to come out. And you already know which guys are not coming out. Like, that's a pretty simple question to answer. But when it comes down to, hey, who gets scratched? Well, who are the candidates for that? And this is not an indictment on how any of them played. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, who's the youngest and most inexperienced guys and what role do they play? So you have Blake and you have Blake in that discussion. You have Robinson in that discussion. You have Jankowski in that discussion. It's not because they're playing bad. It's because you just can't have more than 12 forwards. So who the odd man out ends up being in that situation, I would imagine it might end up being Blake. And again, this is not because of him playing poorly, because he's not. He's playing well. It's more so the fact of he doesn't have any playoff experience. Stankoven does. So that's another thing that you have to think about with that. You can't pull Jankowski out because you need a fourth-line center there, I don't think. So that's where the question has to be asked, because Yost will be out of the lineup. You have, as far as the Black Aces go, Nadeau will be there. Yaksa will be there. So that Nadeau is going to be there. So that's the other questions that you really, really have to ask. I'm just wondering who's going to come out. And the top line, as much as I've enjoyed it, it is a little bit on the small side. Maybe you put Svechnikov back up there. Maybe you could put Taylor Hall there. I personally wouldn't do that because I like Hall and Kokiniemi playing together a lot. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that they're going to have to shuffle the lines a little bit. As long as Aho and Jarvis stay together, I think almost any line combination can be good. I really do. And as long as KK and Hall stay together, maybe KK, Hall, and Svechnikov, there's a ton of different options there. So I do like the lines as they are right now, but when you get guys like William Carrier back, for example, one of the biggest reasons I want Carrier back in the lineup is so that Rod will put him with Jordan Stahl and Jordan Martinook and leave Seth Jarvis with Aho. And let that shutdown line be a shutdown line. They'll chip in some offense here and there, but that's not their primary job. They need to go out there. They need to go out there and forecheck. They need to hit people and, be that line that just eats up a ton of minutes where the other team does not get a net positive in scoring. And then they can chip in a little bit of offense on their own. That's the biggest thing that you need out of them. So when all that happens, we'll see how it goes. But I'm really curious to see that. Dylan Bollinger says, I'm happy Cucci is in net tonight. I know both been great, but I think PK has been better. Yeah. It's a good, I don't want to say problem, but it's a good situation that we have with the goaltending right now, better than what we normally do as far as how both these guys are performing. And what I'm interested to see in the playoffs is if they designate a starter or if they actually perform a rotation, because they've been doing the rotation all season. The rotation is working fine. In the playoffs, I don't think that it's a very, very – I don't think it would be as volatile or dangerous to have a rotation in the playoffs as a lot of teams make it look. So I'm hoping that they'll have something like that. Now, what would be really helpful with that, any particular playoff series they go into, if you win the first game, and ideally if you win the first two games even, then you could be like, all right, cool, we can give this other goalie a break, throw somebody, like let's say, for example, that Kochekov is the starter, and you win the first two games. And then the third game, it's pretty low risk at that point to put Freddie in and let Kochekov have a game off, and then the team that's been trying to score on Kochekov for the last 120 minutes, maybe more if there's overtime, has to play against a completely different goalie that they're not as acclimated to playing against. And, that could work out well. It could go the other way, but it could also work out really, really well. J-Dub says PK needs to be the number one next year. Morrow should not be sent down either, in my opinion. I agree. I can't shake the feeling that they're going to bring Burns back. I really can't. Even though I think Morrow's got nothing left to learn at the American League level. If they send him back down to the minors, three things. One, if Burns resigns, then Morrow would probably have to go back to the minors because there's no room for him. And I don't think there's any prospect of them trading Chatfield or Sean Walker. I don't think either one of those guys need to leave. You could get a really good haul, a decent haul for Chatfield, and a pretty good one for Walker, a little bit better one than you could for Chatfield, in my opinion. But I would not want that to happen. And then the second thing being, if they bring Burns back, that's a quick way for Morrow to ask for a trade because he won't have a definitive path to the team after that if Burns, Chatfield, and Walker are all here. So that's another thing that has to be considered. I don't think he should go back down next season. I really don't, but we'll see. He can go get some, Morrow doesn't have any professional playoff experience yet. He can go get some playing with the Wolves. There's that to be considered. But at the same time, I would just rather them go ahead and go forward with the future of the defense, because what's the point of drafting these guys, developing them, seeing that they're ready, and then not putting them in the lineup? So we'll see what happens, but I am really, really against the idea of bringing Burns back. If we didn't have Morrow, well, two things. One, if we didn't have Morrow, I'm going to piss some people off when I say this, but what else is new? If we didn't have Morrow, instead of bringing Burns back, I'd bring Tony back. I'm dead serious. Like, he played so well with Slavin. You could slot him in right there, and he would have a 2021, 2022 season like he did before, I really think. He just fits really well in that role. Second thing being, if you have Morrow, then you don't need to bring back Burns. You have an identified replacement who's young and on an ELC, and probably at the end of the day will not command as much money that Burns is making now. And I'm accounting for the salary retained by San Jose. You're not going to have to pay Scott Morrow $8 million unless he just really goes off next season. So that's one of the things to consider with that. Dylan Bollinger says Morrow will be full-time next season. I really hope so. I can't shake the feeling that they're going to bring Burns back. I just can't shake that. I hope that's not the case. Ideal situation, Hurricanes win the cup, and then Burns is like, okay, I'm good. But we'll see. Thayer Crafts, what's up, dude? Hi, buddy. I've missed the streams. Excited to hopefully extend our streak. Yes, absolutely. If they can extend the streak, great. I just hope that they have a really good game today and can maintain the consistency they've been playing with, because they played a trap game the other night that I was just so confident that they were going to lose, even though it was kind of a joke. But then they had a really good third period and were able to win. You can't do that against a lot of teams. San Jose was one of those teams where you can play just one good period and still win. Going to be kind of the same circumstances with Anaheim tomorrow night. Josh says, you talking about makes me miss the shutdown line of Carrier, Stahl, and Marty. Logan Stankoven play with KK and Hall. I could see that. That one could work out. If they did that, then you could do Svechnikov, Aho, and Jarvis again. The only thing is, one of the biggest disservices that has been done to Andrei Svechnikov, and it pisses me off because Rantanen had this opportunity. One of the biggest problems that Svechnikov has is he's not really played his natural position here a whole lot. Do you remember a few seasons ago, Svechnikov's rookie year being one of them? A lot of times that Rod had Svechnikov with Aho and Teravainen. Svechnikov was on the right wing, and if you look at a heat map of his scoring, that's where he gets a lot of his scoring from, whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play. On the right side of the ice, he is significantly better. He's more lethal. He creates better opportunities there. He scores more goals from positions like that. So if they bring that line back, because I don't think Aho and Svechnikov have chemistry, and they've been trying to force it for years. But if you do have to have Aho and Svechnikov together, put Svechnikov on the right wing. Jarvis has shown over the last few weeks he is totally capable and in some ways better at playing the left wing. So between Aho and Jarvis, you have plenty of defensive acumen between those two guys. And then you can have Andrei Svechnikov opened up to play a little bit more of an offensive game, because when he's on the right side of the ice, him being a left-handed shot, him being a power forward, he has a much easier time cutting to the middle of the ice and getting that good sight picture and shooting pucks from that type of location. He's really good at working into the interior from both sides, but he's significantly better at doing it from the right side. So when everybody is healthy and we all start drafting our armchair GM lines, if you have to have Svechnikov with Aho, please put him on the right. They gave Rantanen that shot. Svechnikov should have had that shot already, if you ask me, because a lot of people are down on Svechnikov, and I think that he's still an incredibly skilled player. He hadn't turned out to be what we hoped he would be, but we also have to take into account he used to take penalties a ton, and lately, before the injury and everything, he had gotten pretty good about not taking stupid penalties. He's still going to take them. He's a physical player. It's unavoidable. But him whacking the shit out of somebody behind the play, Andrei Svechnikov, he's not been doing that nearly as much as he was before. So one good thing there in regards to how Svechnikov has played, because that was his biggest problem, was taking those stupid penalties. He's not been doing it so much. J-Dub says, if they bring Burns back, I will fucking explode. I might explode with you, pal. I don't want them to do that. And it's not even so much anything against Burns himself. It's just we have a developed player waiting in the wings that will ultimately cost less percentage of the cap, who's also faster than Burns at this point, and this team is built on its ability to play quickly, have those quick transition games, to have the defensemen pinch aggressively to retain the offensive zone. Please, for the life of me, I cannot think why they would bring Burns back, but I just have a sinking feeling it's going to happen. Dylan Bollinger says Flyers just scored on Dallas, and let me guess, Mikko Rantanen was on the ice. Dylan also says they also have more shots on goal. Oh, wow. Dallas we might have fleeced them in that trade more than people realize, because Stankoven has been great. J-Dub says, I might be in the minority, but Svech is just not working for me. How many years is it going to take for him to put it all together? It feels like we will wait 10 years talking about how good they can be. Yeah, Svechnikov is not what we want him to be, but the thing about it is, let me play devil's advocate here in regards to Svechnikov, and I know I do that for a lot of players, Kokaniemi in particular. When it comes to Svechnikov, power forwards are a very hard skill set to come by, especially if they have a decent scoring touch. So even if Svechnikov maxes out at being a 70-point player, he's still valuable to have, and he's got a pretty good contract. Should he produce a little bit more for the amount of money he makes and play more often? Absolutely, but guy's not going out there and getting injured on purpose. So now people have talked about, do you trade Svechnikov in the offseason? Well, it's like anything else. If a good enough offer comes along and you can get a definitive upgrade, or someone offers you maybe not as good of a player as Svechnikov, but you get something else along with it, like a high-end prospect or some picks that you could flip, because the Canes don't really need to focus so much on drafting the next few seasons. They're going to have to again eventually, but more than anything, I think they need to flip what they have asset-wise now, make some room, let the younger kids come in, all that type of stuff. So I personally don't want to give up on Svechnikov, because a player with his skill set is not very common. If you do trade him for someone like, say, Brady Tkachuk, I have to give Adam Gold some credit here. I remember back in the day the last season that the Hurricanes missed the playoffs right before they drafted Svechnikov, Adam Gold was a proponent of drafting Brady Tkachuk instead. At the time, myself and many other people, and this was way before I started the channel or anything, myself and many other people are like, but Svechnikov is the consensus overall second pick. Why would we do that? That draft actually ended up being kind of weird. So you had Rasmus Dahlin, who was the overall number 1 pick consensus. Svechnikov was overall number 2 consensus. Third, Brady Tkachuk was it? No, I take that back. Yeah, Brady Tkachuk, I forget where he went, because Kotkaniemi went third because everyone thought that Philip Zadina was going to get drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, and they drafted Kotkaniemi instead. And every Habs fan I knew lost their fucking mind about that. So if you were to trade Svechnikov, and you probably have to throw in something else to make it happen, for someone like Brady Tkachuk, then you have to really strongly consider pulling the trigger on a trade like that, because that's the type of player that the Hurricanes are missing. If Matthew Tkachuk had been offered up and Svechnikov been part of the price, I would have made that trade. I would have, and I like Svechnikov a lot, but he's got to find another gear. He really does. But I'm also not really a big proponent of moving him out yet either. But I do see the case for why it should be considered. There's nobody on this team right now that I think just has to be traded. Now, if you're talking about UFAs, as far as ones we shouldn't bring back, Burns and Orlov, it shouldn't even be thought about, especially Orlov. No, I take that back. Both of them. I wouldn't bring either one of them back. You have replacements for both of them. So Jessica M says, Rail Yard Dog and Canes fan here, like your hat. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Oh, and the Marksmen and the Rail Yard Dogs play today, I think, in Fayetteville, because I'm going to watch that game after the Canes and Kings are done. Paniac, love you, TWT. I will fucking destroy you. I'm kidding. Love you too, buddy. Thank you. Him and KK. Yeah, I don't want Kotkaniemi to go anywhere. Kotkaniemi needs to just take up Jordan Stahl's role when he's done playing, because Jordo's only got 2 more years on his contract. And with a team that is as defensively focused as Carolina is, center depth is really, really important to them. The other thing about Kotkaniemi, a lot of people said, why don't you try him on the wing? The times I've seen him on the wing, he's been awful. He's just not a winger. Him being playing wing on a good day does not equate to him playing center on a bad day. He's just a natural center. Is he as good as we would like for him to be? No. But at the same time, really good middle 6 centers like KK are again, a thing that you don't find a ton of. If you find someone to go on the depth chart between Aho and KK, the Hurricanes are in business. Ideally, you would want someone on the depth chart ahead of Aho, but there's 8 to 10 players on that list, maybe, that are definitively a better option than him for a first-line center, and none of them are available. Now, if you're talking about a 1A, 1B situation with the top 2 centers, this would never happen. But if you go out and get someone like Tage Thompson or someone like Dylan Larkin, for example, or even though I'm not a big proponent of this one, Elias Pettersson, if you go out and get someone like that, then it becomes a matter of, okay, we have these 2 really, really great centers, and okay, where's the face-off? What's the situation? Do we need a goal, or do we need to protect the lead? That's what it becomes at that point. So bringing someone in and having a 1A, 1B situation with Aho is a lot more realistic than having someone definitively better than him, because there's not many players that are better than Aho at that position. There's just not. Now, if you bring in someone who's kind of on par with him, like Dylan Larkin or Tage Thompson, then you have a 1A, 1B situation. I personally would prefer that. I like the versatility of this roster. I like how you can kind of change stuff up a little bit, and it doesn't really regress in a lot of cases, and it can acclimate, and as long as it's left alone, it'll be fine. So I would love to just have someone on the depth chart between Aho and Kotkaniemi, and then you have Jordan Stahl in the 4th-line center, but then that also leaves the question of what you do with Jankowski. That's the only problem. And I don't want Jankowski going anywhere, because he's looking like he would be a legitimately good long-term 4th-line center. And I know Chad LaRose was a winger, but for an example, that guy played in Carolina his entire NHL career, and then he played more with the Checkers and more with the Florida Everblades, and then he finished out with a different ECHL team. The guy played until he literally couldn't play anymore. I remember when he was playing in the Florida Everblades, and people were like, "Oh, this is going to be the end for him." I was about to say, "No, the fuck, it's not. He's going to go to the SPHL and play or something." That's what I was thinking was going to happen. But age finally caught up with the guy, even though I love Chad LaRose, but Jankowski kind of brings that type of skill set, the longevity, to be a staple bottom 6 player. Same thing with Eric Robinson. I would sign him to a Carrier type deal. Carrier is another one of those guys also that you could have build your bottom six long term, and then you have less to worry about in terms of what you have to go look for in free agency. That's what I would do. Dylan Bollinger says, I got a lot more faith in KK than I do Svetch. Me too, to be perfectly honest. KK is one of those guys. It's just like when KK at one point was down to like 5 people on the planet that liked him, and I was one of them. And I never saw anything in his game that said he's never going to be useful as a center. And honestly, his contract is not that bad. He's making 4.82 AAV right now, I believe. And if I remember off the top of my head, it's 4.82. That's going to be the going rate for a middle six or a third line center in a couple of seasons anyway. And so that's just one thing the Hurricanes might have got ahead of. So it works out either way. Either you got a steal of a deal for a second line center, which it doesn't look like he's going to turn into that. Not for long term. He can probably do that as needed when there's injuries and when the lines need to be shaken up and stuff. But you still got a really, really solid middle six center for less than $5 million a season. So it's not a bad deal. And with the lack of physicality that this team can have at times, and them being on the smaller side, especially once you start bringing in guys like Nadeau, Felix Ungersorm, Stankoven's here now, Jackson Blake, even though he plays above his size, Jarvis plays above his size. You need someone who brings that extra physicality. And another thing about KK, he's one of the few guys on this team that's willing to shed his mitts and actually fucking throw with somebody when the necessity arises. So that's another thing that needs to be considered. I know that fighting is eventually not going to be in hockey. I don't think they'll ever outlaw it, but you're going to get to a point where you see fights in baseball more than you see them in hockey because you need your entire bench to win every game. Every player is important now. It's not like back in the day where you had John Scott that logged 2-3 minutes of ice time a night and logged more time in major penalties than he did TOI. Those days are over. Reese Bailey, what's up, buddy? Are you the same Reese that's that comments all the time on X? Please let me know. I just wondered. This may be controversial, but I think Svetch's contract is worse than what people think KK's is. Svetch makes nearly $8 million a season for 60-point production. Yeah, I agree with that. KK's contract is not nearly as bad as people say it is, and every year it's a smaller and smaller percentage of the cap. And he's had his ups and downs, but he's going in the right direction right now. If Kokoniemi is out there hitting people, not getting scored against, and getting secondary assists, he's doing his job. That's the biggest thing you got to look for. Every player has bellwether stats. In the case of Kokoniemi, is he hitting? Does he have a lot of hits? Does he have a high amount of secondary assists? That's the biggest thing you got to look for with him, because he's one of those guys that he generates a lot of breakouts with the way that he plays in the defensive zone. The reason for that is you'll see the way that a guy like Sebastian Aho, Jordan Stahl being another example, the way that they defend, it's not so much physicality. Aho, to just put a focal point on it, Aho defends by poke checking, disrupting plays, using his stick and everything like that. Kokoniemi, so like when he goes in the defensive zone, when he's back checking on somebody, his thing is he normally catches up to them, goes for a quick stick lift, takes possession of the puck, goes the other way, passes, does whatever he does once he's executed the takeaway. Kokoniemi is one of those guys that forces somebody into a corner, lays the body on him, and initiates a board battle, and he normally wins those because he's a big kid and he's got a lot of reach. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Kokoniemi is the greatest skater in the world. He looks like a baby giraffe out there, but he does all kinds of other shit really, really well. So that's one of the reasons I like the kid so much, is like, even with the lack of skating skill, he makes up for it in a lot of other ways because he's got really good hands. He's got a really wicked ass shot when he wants to. So that's another thing that you can consider with that. But as long as Kokoniemi's doing those things, he's fine. I think he's fine as long as he's initiating board battles, defending through physicality, and starting breakouts. He's doing his job. That's any skill set in the National Hockey League is valuable. That one's pretty valuable. It's not like the most valuable thing, but it's up there. RBA says, I don't think Reese Bailey says, I don't think RBA does him any favors with his deployments, though. It's a tough situation, to be honest. If you're talking about KK or Svechnikov, I think that applies to both of them. I would love in the future to see KK semi-permanently slotted with guys like Robinson, and on the right, maybe someone like Carrier if Jordo retires sooner than later or anything like that. If he's playing with physical, fast guys, he's going to be a lot better off. Groza, what's up, buddy? I don't know anything about hockey, but it's pretty lame for an American team to have a monarch as their mascot so LA can go pound sand. I I know this guy in real life. He's really fucking cool. Scott Thomas, what's up, bro? I just wanted to say, what's up, man? Go Canes. Hey, go Canes, buddy. Josh says, KK will definitely do well taking over Stahl's line. He's also the only one who puts some hurt on people, and he's sticking up for teammates where I wish more Canes players would. As much as I hate playing against Brady Tkachuk, he brings that enforcer role that I think the Canes need sometimes. KK, I could see him doing that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, like, this team does lack some physicality. For the way that they play, they definitely need at least a couple of super physical players. So guys like KK and to another extent, Svechnikov. So J-Dub says, you brought up a good point. As much as I hate the blend, the more we are constantly in, it does make us versatile and we're able to adjust to injuries come playoffs. Yes, and there's no way that you go through the Stanley Cup playoffs without having injuries. Another thing to consider, this actually, you bring up a good point as well. One of the things that I was talking about with, like, when Levy made his comment, who do you take out of the lineup when everyone's healthy? Well, that might be a short-term problem because there's no way you're going to make it through the entire playoffs healthy. There's no way. It's just not going to happen. It's not a feasible goal. It's just not. So that problem may solve itself. I don't want it to work out that way, but we'll see. Tim Bowman says, don't bring Burns and Orlov back. I agree. The future is now. It's time to, like, start progressing to that after this season. There's no reason to bring either one of them back. You have replacements for both. If you didn't have anybody to replace them with, and you didn't have anybody that you could go out in free agency and get, especially if you know that they fit well with the system, like when they brought Goss to spare back, you already knew that he was a good fit. And he had a full camp. He came in, he started the season on a heater, kind of fell off, had that wrist injury, came back, still playing really well. Underrated defensive game, if you ask me, from Goss to spare. But when you know guys fit, then yeah, bringing someone like that back in free agency is good, but you have drafted and developed prospects pretty much ready. You can't hold those guys up anymore for someone who's 40 now. And I like Burns. I like him a lot. I've got nothing against him, but it's just about taking the team in a competitive direction and having what Eric Tulsky, I'm stealing his phrase, sustained success. You can't have that if you bring those two guys back. It's just not feasible. So I don't think either one of them, I hope neither one of them come back. I wish them all the best, but if they want to keep playing, it just can't be in Carolina. And that's my only thing about it. Dylan Bollinger says, oh no, the Stars fans about to lose their shit. Ha ha ha. Well, oh fuck, what happened? Tim Bowman says, bring more up. Russian defenseman, replace Orlov, trade Walker, and sign the guy that played with Slavin in the Four Nations tournament, Fabro, I think. No, that was Brock Faber, and there is absolutely no way that Minnesota will give him up. I would love to have Brock Faber is one of, like, 4 players that I would give up Alexander Nikishin to get. That's how much I liked that pairing with Slavin and Faber. That pairing would be absolute fire. But we need that's just, they're not going to give him up. Plus, he's from there. So, like, I don't know if he would want to leave anyway. But that's the price for that would probably include Nikishin. Now, if you could get him and Sean Walker be the main piece going back the other way with a sweetener of some sort from the Canes, then I would make that deal. But I really like Sean Walker too. So it's like, if you couldn't get Faber, Sean Walker would play really well with Slavin, depending on how they shake the pairs up next season. Reese Bailey says, yep. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay. Josh says, this just install out with lower body injury and ghost out with illness. Oh, boy. All righty. Got it. Let me go see these updated lines then. I am really interested to see this. But yeah, I really like Sean Walker. I wouldn't give him up. Devils fans bitching at me on X over stupid shit. What else is new? Let's see. I'm trying to find the lines here. Let me see if Walt tweeted them out yet. Okay, so one other big change here. So Kochekov confirmed starting for the Canes. David Riddick is starting for the Kings. So I'll pull their data up here in a second and take another look at that. Let me see if I can see if Walt tweeted the new lines out. All right. Yaksa in for Jordan Stahl. That makes sense. Scott Moore will play in place of Shane Gostisbehere. Warm-up show, Jarvis, Aho, Blake, Hall, Kokaniemi, Roslovic. Robinson, Jankowski, Martinuk, Yaksa, Yost, Stankoven, Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Chatfield, Walker, Morrow. All right, that's about the best you can do with those circumstances. So that's fine with me. Yeah, that's about the best we're gonna get. These Devils fans are being fucking cunty today, dude. What the fuck? Jordan Stahl is out and Ghost out with illness. Yep. Will Parks, what's up, bro? Roll the 5-on-5 lines out on the power play. I say it works. At this point, they might as well. I mean, it's like what the fuck else is what else do we have to do? I mean, I'm not opposed to that at all. I remember there was one time back, and I want to say it was the 18-19 season, that the power play was so bad that Rod put like one of the bottom 6 lines out there, because I remember Clark, Bishop, Warren Fogle, and somebody else rolled out there for it, and I was like, oh fuck. Oh shit, that's bad. But sometimes that's what you need to do, to just hit the reset button. Casey, what's up, dude? Let's go, Canes. Let's get this 9th in a row. Absolutely. Ghost and Stall out. Yep. Burns should retire as a Shark. Yeah, I'm good with that. He can still play on other teams. Like I said, if we didn't have a replacement for him, and if we didn't have anybody we could go out in free agency and get to take that spot, especially if we knew they fit already, i.e. Goss Spare type of situation, Tony type of situation, then that would be one thing. But we can't. We cannot bring him back and move forward. It's just not going to happen. Josh says PK starting. Yep. PK confirmed starter. Yep. Levy Lato says this is exactly why KK is so important for this team. Before he found his game here, a stall injury would be a disaster. Now it's annoying, but something we can deal with. Yes, that's why we need to keep him. It's like on the off chance we do win the cup this year. Like I said, I don't think it's the greatest odds this season, but I think that legitimately, if they win, maybe Jordo thinks about retiring early, and then at that point you have Aho, KK, and Jankowski as your centers, and you can give Jankowski a pretty good deal. You can sign him for like couple, like 2.5, 3 million, something like that, for like 4 seasons, something along those lines, just kind of ballparking numbers here. And then you just have to find someone to go on the depth chart between Aho and Kokaniemi at that point. And then that's when you can really look into like overpaying a little bit to bring someone like Dylan Larkin or Tage Thompson. And like I said, I don't think either one of those guys would be moved, but just for an example of the type of center that I would target on the trade market. And then not to mention, I'm pretty confident that the Hurricanes are going to get Nikolai Ehlers in free agency. Unless he takes a big pay cut to stay in Winnipeg, I think that he's going to come to Carolina. I know a lot of people talk about Marner. Marner, I think, is a little bit riskier of a signing than Ehlers would be. And then Besser, that's another guy you could look at. There's a bunch of different options there. RBA to Trip, we have Cygnus making it through the locker room. Oh, great, another one. First we had the flu back around the time Mikko got traded for. Is somebody making the team sick on purpose? They're like, this is bullshit. All righty. Well, everyone, I'm going to go get ready to watch the game. This has been a ton of fun, as always. And I will probably do damage report after. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. We got a couple more comments here. Cavery the Cane says, Ehlers or Besser? After everything, which one will you pick? Between those two, Ehlers. Ehlers, no doubt. I would take Ehlers 10 times out of 10 in that situation. Not because he's necessarily he's a more complete player than Besser. Besser, you can use the goal scoring. He's got a really good shot. Ehlers, I just think, would be a really, really good fit for this team. And like a seamless fit, in my opinion. J-Dub says Rod doses players so he can toy with the lines. I thought Marner didn't want to play in this kind of system. I don't know. I know a lot of people talk about us potentially getting him. I don't think that's going to happen. And I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him in. I just feel like that out of all the big free agents, him, Ehlers, and Besser's probably being the top, or him, Ehlers, and Besser being the top 3, that Ehlers would be the safest bet. Besser would be the second. Marner would be the riskiest guy to bring in. But Marner's got a really good defensive game too, so there's that possibility as well. Josh, see you, bro. See you, bro. Casey, LFG. All right, guys. I am going to go make myself something to eat because I'm coming off a 26-hour fast, and I'm going to go watch the game. I will more than likely see you guys after the game. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. It's a Saturday. I didn't have to work today, so I'll try to put together a little bit of a damage report show after this. All right, I'll see y'all later.